How can some of the end users, the end beneficiaries get involved and get excited about what's happening around them and hopefully become willing and active participants in the change that is happening on a local level, but really on a big global level too?
I generally work with grassroots level innovation, and that is also what excites me most. I also find it very exciting when big tech or big corporations meet these grassroots levels, and then amazing things can happen in between. So I wanted to give you two, three examples maybe of how I see a lot of dynamic and development really also coming from this grassroots level. I already mentioned Will Senyo, so I'll go back to them. Sometimes, especially when people are not so familiar with the dynamics of the different ecosystems, I would say in Africa, you get this sort of idea that this might all just serve elites and people who are already well off sort of meet in these innovation hubs and do well off middle-class people things, which may be true in some cases, but definitely not something that could be generalized like that. So the Impact Hub Accra, for instance, has a vision of how to turn the area of the city where they're based in, Osu, into a smart city, and have developed this vision before the sort of government of the city of Accra had it themselves, and have really brought forth this concept, this idea, and then taken the city along with it. And they're not doing this to benefit the maybe already well-educated people who are working on startup ideas, but really everybody in their neighborhood. So just recently, William gave a talk on how every person who runs a shop in that community or has some kind of local business is being involved in this plan. Just like in Togo, for instance, WOA Labs has always had this impact vision that everything 1 kilometer around their impact hub is part of their impact vision, and they're taking their whole community along. And I think that's a really beautiful way of seeing how can you make development in digital technologies tangible for people and meaningful for people in different ways. We run a project as GIG called Careables. And I think in open source technologies, in many ways, sort of this UX idea of how do you go around creating tech is to do with the user is so deeply embedded, and it's quite beautiful to see that come to life. So Careables is a platform that collects open source medical devices that can easily be adapted and customized to meet individual people's healthcare needs, because we're all different, and especially people with special physical needs shouldn't just be served with off-the-shelf products. And in the development of all these devices, the people who need them were directly involved. So whether it's people sitting in a wheelchair that might say what kind of auxiliary wheelchair devices they need, whether it's people needing prosthetics and having those adapted to their individual needs, there's always the user involved in that level. And that took many different shapes and forms, including creating meetups between people with groups of disabilities and makers and maker spaces, and bringing them together to see what could they create together. So this involvement of the last mile user, as you called it, I think is something that's really important to grassroots and open source development in general. And you can see come to life in these different visions, whether it's creating a smart city area or a portal for open medical devices.
And I would just add that the way to do it is that you should be creating solutions while thinking about the end user as a starting point, and not creating a solution and then think, okay, how can it serve the purpose? And that's exactly the philosophy of Mezzanine. So you know, they traveled, they see how smallholder farmers struggle. They see that the main problem is access to markets. How can we solve this problem? And that's how the platform was produced. So really this purpose-led or end-user-led approach, and then finding the time. I know it's not always easy, but finding the time to walk the solution through and to help people to fully seize it, because you know, giving a solution or even machines to people and just leaving and not giving any help or support or advisory is not a solution either, because then would they just put it in the corner and do their things as they were doing all days. So there needs to be this end-to-end approach and support and skills skills is of course always the basics for everything. That paves the way for fully fledged experience, and that can help us to become responsible citizens and really fully seize the use of the solutions.